We held our breath for the Rahimi decision to come out. Then we got some added value as the Chevron doctrine was thrown away. We're starting to see some more movement in the Ninth Circuit. Let's go ahead and recheck what the status is on some of these CRPA lawsuits. Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel today with the current status of the Ninth Circuit and some of the federal district courts, along with some cases that are moving along. We spent a little bit of time at the federal level as well. I thought it would be a good idea to revisit some of these prominent CRPA lawsuits, see where they are in the courts, see what the status on those are as well. To do that, we have brought in the president of CRPA, that is Chuck Michel. Chuck, thanks for being with us today.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And guys, before we get into the video today, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to these videos. It really helps us out with the algorithms to get this message out to as many people as possible. And while you're down there in the description, there you will find a link to the Police Credit Union. They're a sponsor on this channel. I wanted to give them a shout out. They have some special member benefits for CRPA members. If you go there, go ahead and check them out. It can do a lot of good, especially with making sure where you keep your money nowadays with the economy the way that it is. So go ahead and check that link in the description below and visit them. So Chuck, I say we just jump right into this. You know, like I said, there's been a little bit of movement, but I guess the overall sentiment is we were all kind of holding our breath for Rahimi at the Supreme Court to get some direction, and specifically the conversations that we had was in the Ninth Circuit. We got a little bit of added value with the Chevron doctrine being thrown out there. I just wanted to revisit some of these. The first one that comes to mind is Boland v. Bonta. This was our challenge to the handgun roster in California. We ended up getting a good decision from the federal district court, but the Ninth Circuit basically said, hey, we're waiting for Rahimi to come down. So what exactly is the status of this one in the Ninth Circuit, and what are the expectations that we have of that one moving forward?
Well, now Boland is stayed pending Duncan. So one good thing that came out of this is that microstamping was repealed, basically. A new microstamping law may come into effect next year. We'll be ready to fight that too. But in the meantime, there have been a few new guns added to the roster of guns that can be sold in California. But that's not nearly enough. We need to have everybody able to choose from all the thousands of models of firearms that other citizens in other states can choose from. There's a lot of guns out there that are tailored to specific individual circumstances that people don't have access to. But in the meantime, though, the case is in the Ninth Circuit, but it stayed pending the Duncan ruling, which has been argued en banc. It was argued en banc in March. We're waiting for a ruling on Duncan.
So I saw, we see a lot of these cases go through the Ninth Circuit. I think Boland was the only one where they actually came out with, I don't know if you call it an opinion or if it was an order that stated they were remanding the case pending a decision in another case. Is that something that's common? Why haven't we seen that a whole lot from other cases?
Well, we actually are seeing it more and more often in the Ninth Circuit because of the Duncan case. The Duncan case is the only case that's been argued en banc. Interestingly enough, there's another case, the Bianchi case in the Fourth Circuit, that was just decided en banc, that said that that state's assault weapon law, so-called assault weapon law, was constitutional. That case is going to go to the Supreme Court, and I fully expect the Supreme Court to take it. Duncan, likewise, since it's now an opinion from a final judgment and it's has been argued en banc, will likely go to the Supreme Court. The problem has been the Supreme Court has not taken certain cases because they were really at the preliminary injunction stage, not at a final judgment. Remember, that's the process you have to go through. The case is over once you get that final judgment, and that's what you can appeal. So between Bianchi and Duncan, I think the Supreme Court next session may be looking at two cases.
What about the Rhode v. Bonta case? I mean, is that basically in the same place? We got a good decision from Judge Benitez in San Diego at the federal district court. This was our challenge to the ammunition regulations from Proposition 63 in 2016. That one is currently at the Ninth Circuit. Does the same sentiment go for that one?
Well, that hasn't been stayed, interestingly enough. They have oral argument. They're scheduling oral argument for December or January. Uh, and we're doing some supplemental briefing in that because of the Rahimi decision. But that case, we'll have to see. Once they have oral argument, they might stay it again pending Duncan, but Duncan may be out by then, in which case the oral argument will focus on what Duncan said, what the Duncan ruling says. But we may not. I mean, if we lose Duncan, remember we lost 7-4. We the first time around on Duncan, we won in the district court. We won in the 3-judge court panel on the Ninth Circuit. Then we lost 7-5 in the Ninth Circuit en banc. So we got to change 2 minds on the en banc panel, and we might, because that first time around was before Bruin came down. So we're hopeful, but and there's a lot of infighting going on between the judges in the Ninth Circuit about how faithfully they're applying the Bruin standard. So Duncan is still kind of up in the air. I mean, I'm hopeful that we will change those 2 minds and get a positive ruling in the Duncan decision. Then all these other cases, and remember, the fight is over the methodology. That's the common thread on all these cases. It's how do you apply Bruin to decide whether or not a gun control law is a Second Amendment violation. And there's been a lot of distortion and a lot of games played. In fact, the last cover story for the CRPA magazine was about the shenanigans that the Ninth Circuit has played with the Second Amendment. So depending on what happens in Duncan, all these other cases will either go fast or they'll wind up being stayed again because Duncan will go up to the Supreme Court.
And of course, Duncan was our challenge to the magazine ban that also came with Proposition 63, probably the most prominent lawsuit that we have currently in the court system right now. It's also the lawsuit that brought us Freedom Week, where over 1 million magazines were imported and sold in the state because of the injunction that Judge Benitez put on it. A lot, you keep coming back to the Duncan case with all of these other current lawsuits. The prominence there, is it just because Duncan was first? I mean, why is it that it's hinging on Duncan? Is it because it's further along?
Yeah, it's because it's an en banc panel. It's the 11-judge panel rather than the 3-judge panel. So there's been we've got a lot of wins in the district court. We've got several great wins in the before 3-judge panels, but the en banc panel in the Ninth Circuit overrules a 3-judge panel. So that the decision from the en banc panel is what's going to set the law in the Ninth Circuit. So that's why it's a critical case, and why all the other cases are kind of dependent on it and sort of stuck behind it.
So I guess logic would take me here, but I'll just ask you, since you're talking about methodology by which a judge is analyzing a Second Amendment case, does the May v. Bonta lawsuit kind of fall into this category as well? What's the outlook for May, as that's the lawsuit that we have filed on our challenge to the sensitive places on SB 2?
That has not been stayed yet. The oral argument took place in March in the Ninth Circuit before a 3-judge panel. And we're waiting for that 3-judge panel ruling. If we win that, the state will probably ask the en banc panel to take that, and then we'll have to fight over whether or not it's appropriate for en banc review.
So essentially, you've got the Duncan case, the case challenging the magazine ban, leading the way here at the en banc level. And what it seems like is, we're hopeful that we can get a methodology that is pro-Constitution, but a methodology that would be set for other Ninth Circuit panels as well as federal district court to set as precedent there to get those cases moving along as well.
Exactly, and to clarify what the test is for figuring out whether or not a law is constitutional.
So I guess overall, what are your final thoughts? These are prominent lawsuits. They have been in the court system for a little while now. I would be remiss if too many of our viewers hadn't seen a video already or don't know of these lawsuits in general. What is the outlook as a whole, with Duncan leading the way as we have some oral arguments and a Ninth Circuit en banc opinion to look forward to?
Well, look, it's all a matter of whether or not the Supreme Court takes another case. And they've given all the signals that they are going to, whether it's Bianchi, the appeal from that en banc decision, or Duncan, the appeal from that en banc decision if we lose. Uh, they're going to take. They've been hesitating because the cases weren't all the way to final judgment, and all the way through an en banc panel decision. And now that there's one at least, and there's going to be another one, Duncan, where there's a judgment after an en banc ruling. One of those cases, it's very likely that this, or both, that the Supreme Court will take them. And then once they do, if they make clear what arms are covered and what historical analogs are sufficient to justify a modern gun control law, that will be very helpful and should really open up the door to strike down a lot of California's ridiculous laws. They've been depriving us of our Second Amendment freedoms for decades because the Sacramento was rigged with the Democratic machine. So I'm very hopeful that we're going to get that clarified. The Supreme Court is definitely philosophically aligned. They have at least 5 and probably 6 judges that are pro Second Amendment. The question is, how pro Second Amendment are they? Rahimi, they found that individual, it was a very limited, narrow decision. They found that individual could be disarmed without violating the Second Amendment because he had to due process decision and he was one guy. They did not decide whether or not you could disarm a class of people, whether it's nonviolent felons or marijuana users or whatever other class they decide to demonize and take guns away from, MAGA supporters.
I was going to say, perhaps a political party. You mentioned earlier, though, there's a factor here that could make some of these cases move faster through the court. What's the trigger there? What's the mechanism that would actually make these lawsuits go through the court system faster?
A win in Duncan. But remember, not all these cases are pure Second Amendment cases. Like the Junior Sports Magazine case challenging the ban on marketing to minors. We're still fighting that. The delay in issuing CCWs by the LA County Sheriff and other jurisdictions that don't want to give out CCWs. That lawsuit is going on. The challenge to the excise tax, that's not a Second Amendment. That's not really a Second Amendment case primarily. That's a tax challenge. That case is still, or CRPA and our partners are still litigating that. So the good thing out of this that I do want to tip the hat to the other groups that are working with us, whether it's Second Amendment Foundation, Gun Owners of America, Gun Owners of California, even FPC, we're working together on these cases to, kind of share our resources and not file duplicative lawsuits. And if there's a sort of a silver lining to some of this, it's that all these groups are now really working more closely together than they ever have. We'll see where the NRA comes out on this as they work their way through their internal struggles, but they're definitely making an effort to try and get more involved.
Well, yeah, hopefully that unity will certainly help. This is a lot to look forward to. As I'm sure a lot of you guys already know, there are a ton of CRPA lawsuits going through the court system right now. Chuck, what are your final thoughts, again, as an overall sentiment?
Just look, keep the faith. I know it's very, very frustrating that these take this long, but this is a new area of legal jurisprudence. It's inevitable that it will be fleshed out. In the First Amendment, it took 20 years to hammer some of this stuff out. We're going after all the big things, and then once we get resolutions on the big things, we'll wind up focusing on smaller and smaller aspects of your rights, dross delays, and when you can and cannot deprive a guy, what satisfies the test to try and not give someone a CCW. When can you deny them that right to carry a gun in public? Those kind of issues will be coming on the heels of some of these major issues once they're decided. So this is a fight that's going to go on for quite a while. Not in these particular cases. They will all wrap up relatively quickly, I think. That means a year or so. But the others, we'll be litigating this for a long time because the state is not, the Bloomberg supported groups are, I think Bloomberg just pledged 45 million to support gun control efforts. I can't remember if that's the right number, but they're definitely well funded. The Bloomberg lawyers are assisting all these attorney generals in various states: California, Illinois, Massachusetts, New York. I mean, all those states are getting propped up by Bloomberg's lawyers and Bloomberg's money. And so we're fighting back. We just need people to keep supporting the CRPA, and we will keep fighting, working with all the other groups, all the other lawyers to get our rights back in California and nationally. So just keep the faith and support us if you can. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and we certainly are going to be there every step of the way to follow along, to educate, and to advocate in any way that we can. Chuck, I know that you're a busy guy, got a lot of lawsuits going on right now. I want to thank you for taking the time to be here with us.
Always a pleasure, guys.
Absolutely. And guys, if you want to see more content like this, if you want to continue and learn where these lawsuits are, and if you want to directly contribute to these litigative and legislative efforts to support the Second Amendment in California, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to these videos. It really helps get the message out there, which helps the cause. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.